Hello and welcome to another ranking. Yes, today I am breaking my rule of not ranking any ongoing film series, but you know what? I just can't help myself. I don't like ranking a film series that is ongoing because that means I have to make several of the same video and that's just stupid. But after having watched The Conjuring 3, I'm super eager to rank them, so sit back as I rank the Conjuring universe films from worst to best. In 8th place is The Nun. Released in 2018, it's directed by Corin Hardy and written by Gary Doberman from a story by Doberman and James Wan. It's a spin-off of 2016's The Conjuring 2 and the 5th installment in the Conjuring universe. The plot follows a Roman Catholic priest and a nun in her novitiate as they uncover an unholy secret in 1952 Romania. This film was illogical, idiotic, contradictory, rushed, poorly conceived, and poorly developed. It was not remotely scary and cared more about demonic children jumping from behind trees than it did about its characters. We don't understand our characters as people, there is no character development, and the story is an absolute mess. The timeline is a disgrace, our villain is underwhelming and tries too hard, and the mythology is fractured with no hopes of repair. In my gut, I knew this film wouldn't work and I said so, but I chose to be optimistic and say this film might be great. This film was a disaster from beginning to end with no way of being redeemed. It may have made waves at the box office, but the money it made doesn't mean it was good. This film was indeed terrible in so many ways, it's shocking. This was the 5th film written by Gary Doberman that I'd seen and was the 5th I'd hated because of how it's written. Safe to say I think Gary Doberman is a terrible writer. Sorry. In 7th place is Annabelle Comes Home. Released in 2019, it's directed by Gary Doberman in his directorial debut from a screenplay by Doberman from a story by Doberman and James Wan. It is a sequel to 2014's Annabelle and the 7th installment in the Conjuring universe. In it, while babysitting the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, a teenager and her friend unknowingly awaken an evil spirit trapped in a doll. Once again, like with the synopsis, can they stop that? Because there is no spirit or demon trapped in a doll. The doll is not possessed. How many times do we have to establish it? And yet these Annabelle films keep trying to tell you the doll is possessed. No, it's not! Did anybody watch the start of The Conjuring? This was the 7th film I'd seen written by Gary Doberman, and the 7th film written by him I hated. To sum it up, they made Judy older when she should be younger, they depicted items and cases that had not even happened yet, and the story is more about everything in the Warrens' house going nuts than it is about Annabelle. I think it did have some good moments, and the performances are really good, and minus a few hiccups, the directing is excellent. But when I see so many errors, and I see a universe fall apart before my eyes, no amount of positivity can make that okay. Daniela got possessed in all of 2 seconds, and it wasn't even by the entity that is trying to possess someone, and she got exorcised just as quick. If things happened that fast, there would be no point to the other films. The more I think about this film, the madder I become. I want Doberman to stop writing the scripts to these films. He's done so much damage to them that can't be repaired, and he has taken the story so far into the realm of fiction that they are losing what made them good, and that was the realism they brought to the genre. Without them, they're just dull ghost stories that make no sense. Good performances, directing, and making me jump a few times weren't enough to ease my anger. In 6th place is Annabelle. Released in 2014, it's directed by John R. Leonetti and written by the infamous Gary Doberman. Sorry, I had to say it. It's a prequel to 2013's The Conjuring and the 2nd installment in the Conjuring universe. The film follows a couple that begins to experience terrifying supernatural occurrences involving a vintage doll shortly after their home is invaded by satanic cultists. A film that could have been amazing, but chose a convoluted plot and mythology that does not connect to the original concept and then continues to backtrack on itself. Predictable jump scares, while sometimes effective, lose impact due to starting in on the scares too soon and lacking progression. Loses more points by including a basic looking demon and a creepy looking doll that no one in their right mind would own. I never approved of them making Annabelle look so blatantly scary. It's a huge cop-out. It's far more impressive if you can make something benign look terrifying. I really wish they hadn't tried to create a fictional prequel to a real Warren case and then not even get the timeline right and then just not follow the established mythology at all. This film treats Annabelle like she's possessed when the first film establishes the doll is not at all possessed because demons possess people, not things. Only compliment I have for this film is the actors did a good job. In 5th place is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, also known as The Conjuring 3. It's released in 2021 and is directed by Michael Chavez with a screenplay by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick from a story by James Wan and Johnson McGoldrick. In it, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their careers. When a young man is accused of murder, the suspect claims demonic possession as his defense, forcing the Warrens into a supernatural inquiry unlike anything they've ever seen before. Ultimately, the directing, the cinematography, score, and performances are all terrific, 10s across the board, but apart from the opening of the film, the script is a convoluted mess that, while I appreciate its darker tone, made such little sense and was so far removed from reality and the events of the case that it didn't even feel like a Conjuring film and just felt like one of its poor spin-offs. I still hope they make another Conjuring film and find a way to integrate the realism of the first two and the darkness of the third to create a beautiful horrific monster. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Not the best entry in the universe, not the worst either. It's at the very least tolerable. The first 15 or so minutes go off with a bang, but it's all downhill from there. This film is outlandish and ridiculous because it focused far more on creating a made-up story than it did focusing on the real story. The story is so over the top and honestly not at all believable. In 4th place is Annabelle Creation. Released in 2017, it's directed by David F. Sandberg and written by, once again, Gary Doberman. It's a prequel to 2014's Annabelle and the 4th installment in the Conjuring universe. The film depicts the possessed Annabelle doll's origins. Ultimately, this film redeemed itself a great deal from Annabelle, good progression and far superior writing, shockingly. They went into this with smarts and tried to save a sinking ship. While I don't think the ship made it to shore, they at least got it floating again, which is a huge feat and must be praised, though I'm still unsure why they put the girl who is not the focus of the story on the poster, as it is misleading. I can say I love the effort, the intelligence, the acting, and to a degree the writing, but other aspects are a bit of a miss, so it's a mixed bag. I always say good horror should have a good progression, and this certainly did, thank the Lord. It builds up very nicely instead of just throwing it at you. It eases you in and does that push and pull nicely. The plot and story in this is 1,000 times better than Annabelle, and to my surprise leads into the other film much better than I had anticipated. I really expected to flat out loathe this, but I don't. However, that does not mean it's not without its problems. In 3rd place is The Curse of La Llorona, also known as The Curse of the Weeping Woman. It's released in 2019 and directed by Michael Chavez in his directorial debut. Written by Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iconis, it is the 6th installment in the Conjuring universe and takes place between The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. It sees a social worker and her 2 children drawn into a frightening supernatural realm after she ignores warnings from a troubled mother suspected of child endangerment. While it's not perfect and does have some issues here and there, it does a whole lot more right than it does wrong and is still a vast improvement on what we've had so far in this universe up to this point. It gave me hope for the future of the universe and gave me great hope for what was to come in The Conjuring 3, though that hope was dashed. For Chavez's directorial debut, I think he was off to a great start and showed he has a great talent, and I can see great things for his future. One of my biggest issues is that the film overuses La Llorona. She makes far too many appearances on screen, and when she is there for too long. This is also something depicted in The Nun, and I didn't like it then either. While the scary moments didn't linger and it hasn't left me traumatized or needing to sleep with the lights on, it is still a solid film and far exceeded all my expectations. For me, it was the first good entry in the Conjuring universe that wasn't directed by James Wan. In 2nd place is The Conjuring, released in 2013. It's directed by James Wan and written by Chad and Carrie Hayes. The first installment in the Conjuring universe, it sees paranormal investigators, the Warrens, come to the assistance of the parent family who experience increasingly disturbing events in their farmhouse in Rhode Island in 1971. The Conjuring succeeds in so many ways. It definitely is still one of the most effective and impressive films I'd seen over the past few years in the horror genre. Great plot, fantastic use of camera techniques to keep the audience engrossed and at risk of a heart attack at any minute, not to mention a brilliant and effective score by Joseph Bishara, but I do still feel it was missing a couple things and has some discrepancies when it comes to the mythology it is establishing. It also loses me during the last 20 minutes. I only noticed these things on multiple viewings, as on my first watch I actually found this to be pretty flawless. I mean, this kickstarted this universe and did so brilliantly. It introduced so many to Ed and Lorraine and gave us 2 amazing characters to love and follow and brought new life to the horror genre. This film is still so impactful and I love watching it, and one of its jump scares is one of my top 10 jump scares of all time. And And in first place is The Conjuring 2, released in 2016 and directed by James Wan, with a screenplay by Chad and Kerry Hayes, James Wan and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, from a story by the Hayes twins and James Wan. In it, we follow the Warrens as they travel to Britain to assist the Hodgson family, who are experiencing poltergeist activity at the Enfield Council House in 1977, which later became referred to as the Enfield Poltergeist. This film still makes my heart race. I love every single thing about this film from beginning to end. The sequel has a way of pulling at my heartstrings more than the first one did. Exceptionally performed, perfectly written and designed film with a score that not only complemented it but enhanced it. Reminds me hope is not lost for horror movies. James Wan is without a doubt, at least to me, the best horror director of the modern day. It's great how I notice something new each time I watch it, like all the places the name Valak shows up around the Warrens' home, on the kitchen windowsill, on the kitchen wall, living room bookcase, Judy's bracelet. Such small details, but so cool to see. The Conjuring films are great at depicting Easter eggs, and this one is no exception. I have yet to find a film in this universe to live up to the caliber of this one, but I'm not giving up on the future of the universe just yet. And there you have my ranking of all the films in the Conjuring universe. I'm constantly bouncing between love, disappointment, mediocrity, and hate in this universe. I really never know what I'll get. Unless it's written by Doberman, then I'm pretty sure I know what I'm gonna get. But in spite of the ones I hate, I do love this universe, and I'm still excited for the future. Now that I've said my piece, it's your turn. Comment down below and tell me how these films rank for you. Would love to hear from you. That's it for this video. Hope everyone is staying well and watching plenty of movies, and I hope to see you in my next video. So until then, bye!